Well, good morning. You are in for a treat. An accomplished healthcare executive, Jerry Ashworth has more than 20 years of experience in healthcare administration. And after joining the leadership team at Tier Memorial Hermann in 2014, he provided oversight and leadership for hospital operations as the COO. In 2018, he was named Senior Vice President and Chief Executive Officer of Tier Memorial Hermann Hospital. In addition, he leads Memorial Hermann Rehabilitation Hospital, Katy, as well as the extended Memorial Hermann Rehabilitation Network. Are you tired yet? Jerry believes strongly in Tier Memorial Hermann's mission of ensuring independence and inclusion for people with disabilities, and is actively involved in creating exceptional patient experiences. During his tenure as COO, he assumed the role of executive sponsor for the Tier Adaptive Sports teams, accompanying the Junior Hot Wheels team in 2015 to Louisville, Kentucky, where they won the national championship. He also supported Tier teams when both the adult and junior teams competed at the national championships. Jerry actively promotes community awareness of disability issues and services by participating in activities such as Real Abilities, Houston, Miss Wheelchair Texas, and by leading events such as Rev Up to promote voter registration for people with disabilities. Prior to joining Memorial Hermann, Jerry held a number of leadership roles with Trinity Mother Frances Hospitals and Clinics, now Christus Trinity Mother Frances Health System in Tyler, Texas. He is a fellow in the American College of Healthcare Executives and board certified in healthcare management, as well as a graduate of the Center for Houston's Future Leadership Forum, an organization that guides emerging and proven leaders to a new understanding of and a new sense of personal accountability for the future of the region. Jerry earned his Bachelor of Business Administration from LeTourneau University in Longview, Texas, his Master of Business Administration from the University of Texas at Tyler, and his Master of Science in Healthcare Administration from Trinity University. We are so honored to have Jerry Ashworth with us today. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'm excited to be here. I hope you're excited. A couple of folks I got to talk to when I first walked in, so they're expecting a great presentation. So I'm going to do my best to deliver on the expectations. So how many some form of fashion healthcare majors in the room? Perfect. We need more. I'm glad you guys are choosing this path. So what we're going to talk about a little bit today is my journey. It was not your typical journey, and I'll hit on some of that as we move through the morning. I've already asked this question once, and the answer I got was not a surprise. So how many of you have heard of Tier Memorial Hermann? Okay, good. So typically, most people have not heard of Tier. Now, we are part of Memorial Hermann, the Memorial Hermann Health System in Houston, which is one of the largest health systems in the country. But Tier is one of the top rehab hospitals in the country. And I had been in healthcare 20 years before I moved to Houston. I knew of Tier, but I really didn't know what Tier did. I had in my mind what I thought rehab was, but it was definitely not what was happening in Tier. So what I thought I would do, if you don't mind, because you're going to hear me talk plenty, I thought I would show you a quick video that I think kind of summarizes who we are at Tier. I know when I was going to school, it was always good when we got to watch a video or a movie. So I'm checking off one of the boxes that, we're doing something good here. We get to watch a video. Thank you for letting me share that with you. I hope that gave you a little bit better perspective in terms of who we are at Tier. As I mentioned, I was clueless to what happens at Tier. When I thought of rehab, I thought of, shoulder injuries, maybe a knee injury, something like this, like that, not like the complexity that we talked about in this video. So, Congresswoman Gabby Giffords is one of our most famous patients. I don't know if you remember her story, kind of talked about it a little bit, obviously, in this video. She was at a public speaking engagement in Arizona in 2011. And a random person just walked up and started shooting into the crowd, and she was shot at point blank range. That level of complexity are the types of patients that we see at Tier. We pride ourselves on having the highest case mix index. That's how we measure complexity of a patient. We have the highest case mix index in the country at Tier. And so we really see the patients that no one else can see. So as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't surprised when not too many in the room had heard of Tier, because Tier is one of those places, when you've heard of it, that's because you had a need. You know somebody that needed our services. So in the video, it talked about Lex Frieden, who heads up one of our research divisions. Lex, as it mentioned, worked in President Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush's administrations. You guys, I know roughly how old you are. So you guys have always lived during a time when there's been the Americans with Disabilities Act. Obviously, prior to 1990, that did not exist. It was a whole different world. Lex came to TIER in the late 60s as a patient. Lex would never say this, but I will, because I love bragging on Lex. Lex is one of the smartest people you'll ever meet. Had a spinal cord injury, automobile accident, came to TIER. He did his rehab, 3, 4, 5 months, finished, then contacted the university where he had been accepted and said, I'm ready to come to school now. I've completed my rehab. They said, we're sorry you can't come to school here. He said, well, I don't understand. I've got the grades. I'm kind of a smart guy. And they said, you're in a wheelchair. You cannot come to school here. That's what started Lex on his journey. He went on to get his education elsewhere. Like the video says, went on to work in those 2 presidents' administrations. Lex is the guy that wrote the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's a big deal. You talk about a rock star. I had the opportunity for the 25th anniversary to travel to Washington, D.C. with him for the celebration of the 25th anniversary of the ADA, and it was just really like traveling with a rock star. Everybody wanted to talk to Lex. Everybody wanted a picture taken with Lex, and Lex is so humble. He goes, "Can I introduce you to my boss, Drew?" I'm like, "Okay, don't introduce me that way, because you're a far bigger deal than I ever thought about being." So, so it's people like that I get to work with. So it's, for us, it's more than just what we do from taking care of patients. We're very much advocates for our patients, and so we play a huge role from an advocacy standpoint. One of the ways that we do this, and we talk about independence and inclusion quite a bit at TIER through our adaptive sports program, which was mentioned in my introduction, and you saw some of the video. I would like to mention that we just got back, I say just, it was in April. We got back from Louisville, Kentucky. We did bring home the 2018 National Wheelchair Basketball Championship again, so we're very excited about that. Little known fact, there are 11 schools, Division I schools, that have adaptive sports programs that offer scholarships for adaptive sports. In the last 4 years, we've sent 4 kids from our high school team to college on scholarship to play basketball. 2 of them have won collegiate national championships. One at University of Texas, Dallas, Arlington, which is the Rolling Mavs. That's the most dominant team in the country. And then one of our All-American point guard from 2 years ago, he went to Alabama. They just won a national championship. So UT Arlington, they're the Mavericks. The basketball team, the Rolling Mavs. Everybody keeping up with me? My guy that went to Alabama, what do you think the name of their team is? Close. The Rolling Tide. The Rolling Tide. So yeah, so pretty cool. So I paint this backdrop for you to tell you, hopefully you can hear it in my voice. I think TIER is a pretty awesome place. And I'll talk about their recruitment me to TIER and kind of my first reaction, but I'm very passionate about what we do. I'm very humbled to have the role that I have. I do feel like I've worked hard to get there. You have to have some breaks along the way. But I get to work with, I jokingly, not really joking, pretty serious, tell everybody that, everybody on our campus, Lex Frieden, Dr. Francisco, our chief medical officer, I go down to a list of people that are national, everybody on our campus is a big deal, except for me. I'm the only guy that's not really a big deal. And so I just try not to get in their way and help do my part. So you got this wonderful organization, and then in March, this happened. And that's a lot of headlines there. Actually, ching, 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 ching. So this is from the Houston Chronicle, the 3rd most read paper in the country. I know, find it hard to believe people still actually read the actual newspaper. So I was named the CEO of TIER Memorial Hermann, and as I mentioned, it was a great honor. And so what I want to talk about a little bit today is kind of what led me to this point in my life and in my career. So my journey, is probably not that different than a lot of people. There were a lot of obstacles, a lot of turns, a lot of forks in the road, decisions to be made. It was kind of complicated. It wasn't a clear set journey for me. So original plans, I had 0, none. I've talked to several of y'all in the room before we got started. Everybody seems to know what they want. I've heard nursing. I've heard all kinds of therapy. I've heard different majors. How many of you in your junior, senior year of high school knew exactly what you wanted to do, what you wanted to major in college? Yikes. That's impressive. I'm telling you, it's incredibly impressive. I'm not joking about that. I just wasn't that guy. I had no clue what I wanted to do. And so I grew up in White House. Anybody else here from White House? There we go. That's what I like to hear. Wildcats. So that's a pretty recent picture of the city limit sign. So when I was growing up, there was about 6,000 people less we had a four-way stop, like literally no traffic light. It was four stop signs, you know, that kind of deal. So I was kind of clueless what I wanted to do. So I graduated from high school. You know, some say barely, but I felt like I had plenty of room to get through there. And I had no clue what I would do, so I enrolled at TJC. And I went to school for a semester at TJC, and I was still just struggling. Had no clue what to do. Then I had a great idea. My grandparents lived in Colorado. I thought that's the place I should go to figure out who it is I want to be, what I want to be when I grow up. So I moved to Colorado and spent several years up there, and it was good. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it any differently than I did, because I think it really gave me an opportunity to appreciate various things that would come later in my life. So I moved back to Texas, and this is one of those unexpected turns. Showed that picture earlier of all the different traffic signs, and so this was definitely an unexpected turn for me. So I moved back to Tyler, and somehow I was, you know, in my early 20s, and I actually had some money saved up. Not sure how that happened, but I had a buddy that worked at Mother Francis, and a guy I grew up with, another White House Wildcat, and he said, "Hey, I can get you a job at the hospital if you want." I said, "That sounds pretty stupid. Not sure why I would want to do that." Because in my mind, a lot of you guys, when you in high school now, you get exposed to all these different careers and you get to spend time looking at different things and some of the allied health programs and some of the stuff they do in high school. And we didn't really have that. And so in my mind, you had two kind of people that worked in a hospital: doctors and nurses. And I was fairly certain I did not want to do either one of those things. I was talking to a young lady earlier, and she said what got her out of nursing was chemistry. I said, I never even thought about nursing because of chemistry. So, so I went through my money that I had saved up kind of quick, and then all of a sudden, I needed a job. And so I reached out to my friend. I said, "Hey, you think you could still get me that job, or help me get that job?" And he said, "You mean the stupid job?" And I said, "Yeah, that one." And he said, "Yes." And so I started working in the emergency room at Mother Francis in registration. And this was kind of my aha moment. This is when it all kind of came together for me. I was exposed to this whole new world that I didn't even know existed. And so I loved everything about it. I grew up playing sports. I still play basketball, even though I probably shouldn't. And I love being a part of a team. And you're working in healthcare, you're very much a part of a team. And there was this, you know, you have a sense of purpose in healthcare. And even though I was never going to be the guy that, you know, physically did anything with the patient to help them, I was part of a team that worked with people every day and made individuals' lives better. And that was something that was very important to me, to have a purpose in terms of what I was doing every day. Because whatever you select, whatever you decide to do, you're going to be doing it probably for a long time, unless you win the lottery or, you know, something else happens. You're going to be doing this for a while. And so you need to make sure whatever you're doing, you really love doing it. And so this when it all came together for me. So I thought, okay, I can see somehow a career in healthcare. I wonder what this looks like. And I had pretty low-level goals, I guess you could say. My goal after I started was, how can I get in a leadership position within the admissions department? Ultimately, maybe how can I be the director of admissions for this hospital? That was my goal. For most people, like most of you in this room, obviously, you know, you figured out the education piece, so you work on the education, then you'll get into your career. For me, it was the exact opposite. I needed to figure out what it was I wanted to do, or I just couldn't get engaged from an academic standpoint. And so once I figured it out, I started going to school, and as you already heard, kind of what I did from a educational standpoint. Actually, we have a slide on it. So UT Tyler was a big part of my education. Getting my MBA here was a great program and great experience. And then also went on to Trinity University in San Antonio to get my MHA in Healthcare Administration. UT Tyler now offers an MHA program, which I think is a great program. They've brought in some great faculty to lead this program. It just did not exist when I was going to school here. So I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. MHA is very well recognized in healthcare, not so much outside of healthcare. So that's why I did the MBA as well, in case you're wondering. So if I ever got out of healthcare, I had an MBA that I could use in other industries. So my first experiences. So when I started at Mother Francis, I didn't know anything. I don't know much more today, but I really didn't know a whole lot back then. And so I was just like a sponge. Everywhere I went, I was listening, I was learning, I was taking it all in. And one of the things that you have to do, I think, is make sure you establish yourself. And that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to make sure that people knew they could count on me. I was a guy they could go to. I could get things done. And also that I wanted them to see me as kind of whatever my role was, I was the best at that role. My very first job, now it's going to sound like I'm bragging, but I apologize because I just was that good. My very first job, I was 16. It no longer exists, but there used to be a Mazzio's Pizza at 110 and in the Loop. And Mazzio's Pizza. I'm telling you right now, I was the best pizza maker in town, okay? Without question. And so that's always kind of been my approach. I want to be the best at whatever I'm doing. And I think people see that. And they see that you've got some drive, you've got some muscle. You want to be taken seriously. So as I mentioned, my lower level goal was just to be the director of admissions. And as I started performing, I moved into that role fairly quick in terms of my journey, and had kind of a scope of responsibility that I kind of took a step back from and went, whoa, I'm kind of young in my career. How did I get all this all of a sudden? It was a great learning experience. And I'll tell you how I got that position originally. The initial position, maybe, I don't know, go back in time from when I became director of admissions, maybe a year or so before that, I interviewed for a job, 2 years before that, I interviewed for a job that I did not get. It was a leadership role. And it was a good thing. One, it was good that I went and interviewed, but two, they saw something in the interview that they liked. They didn't like the fact that I really didn't have the experience they were looking for. They saw something they liked. And that was the job I did not get was the last time I interviewed for a job at Mother Francis. From that point forward, I was promoted into these other 3-4 other positions that I was able to achieve while I was with Mother Francis. So, even if you go for an interview and it doesn't work out, make sure you do your part, represent yourself well, let them know who you are. So when future opportunities come up, they'll be thinking of you possibly. So, a couple things that as I started, I talk about, you get very comfortable in what you know. So I was the director of admissions. I thought this was it for me. And then I got promoted into administration, part of the administrative leadership team. And I got responsibility for some areas that I had no clue. Like, I didn't know where some of these departments were even located in the hospital. And all of a sudden, I'm responsible for them. And so you talk about, getting you out of your comfort zone. And that's something else I think we all, if you want to be successful in your career, you need to be willing to get out of your comfort zone, take advantage of new opportunities. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but definitely got me out of my comfort zone. So I went from director of admissions, now I'm the administrative director of operations for the hospital. I've got responsibility for, 12, 15 different departments, 200-300 different employees, just a much larger scope than I ever imagined. But so at this point now, I've taken a step back. I'm thinking to myself, I think I want more than this. I know being director of admissions was my goal, but I think I'd like to do bigger, better things. And so one of the things that I think you have to do from time to time, and this is definitely the case for me, and we'll make sure everybody hears this part. Trinity Mother Francis was incredibly good to me during my time with Trinity Mother Francis. That's where I grew up on healthcare. That's where I learned about healthcare. It's a great organization, great people. But kind of based on where I was and who was in between me and where I wanted to go, I was probably have to make a move if I wanted to reach that next level. So that's when I started looking at potentially leaving Mother Francis, kind of leaving my comfort zone and moving on to different things. So one of the big changes from once I started, in most industries, especially in healthcare, we get calls from recruiters all the time. I was on a call with a recruiter on my drive up here yesterday evening from Houston about an opportunity in Virginia. I'm not interested in going to Virginia, but you want to always stay on the good side of recruiters because you never know when you might need them. So you always take their call and have some conversations and build a relationship with them. So I started building calls from, this is probably about 5 years ago, I started recruiting, building calls from recruiters and started taking a little bit more interest in, okay, where's my next step? Where could I potentially move? And I interviewed for a job with Texas Health Resources in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. THR's, again, a very, very large health system, very great reputation. If you think about what I said earlier, so I hadn't interviewed for a job in many, many years. So this was my first interview, and it's kind of an important interview. And, everything was going great for this job. It seemed like they loved me. And then this HR person came in. She did not like me. I don't know what it was, but she did not like me. And so, they asked me a couple of questions that I probably should have known the answer to. I just didn't, which was, a mistake on my part. But it was a learning opportunity for me to say, okay, make sure you know the answer to these couple of questions. And I'll never forget, this is another tip for you. This one's free, okay? Do not do this in an interview. When you get asked a question, because she asked me this question, I'm pretty sure I'd answered it multiple times. I think I just threw my hands up and said, I'm not sure what you want. I think I've answered this. And so that didn't go over well. So do not do that, okay? You might want to write that one down. I'm just kidding. So I get a call from the recruiter with Memorial Hermann, the executive recruiter for Memorial Hermann. They've got a COO job open at our Woodlands campus. And he calls me and says, Matt, I just got your resume. I'm very impressed. I think you'd be a great fit. I'd love to put your name in the hat for this job, but we are literally making an offer to somebody as we speak. And I said, that's fine, no big deal. I understand. And he said, but I promise you, the next thing that comes open, I'm going to give you a call. And I said, okay, sounds good. So 3 months go by, and all of a sudden my phone rings, and it's this guy. And he's very excited about this opportunity. And so I'm excited. Keep in mind, I grew up at Mother Francis, acute care hospital, helicopters, ERs, ORs, all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited. So he tells me that it's with TIER Memorial Hermann. And so I immediately go, yeah, I don't think so. He said, what do you mean? He said, it's TIER. It's national reputation, world renowned. What do you mean you don't think so? I said, I'm an acute care guy. I'm pretty sure I don't do this whole rehab thing. And I don't think it makes a lot of sense. And he said, he encouraged me to reconsider. He said, do me a favor. Just come to Houston. Just come visit, spend some time on the campus. After you've done that, if you're still not interested, no big deal. And so, as you probably already picked up, I'm really not that smart. But I was smart enough in this situation to drive to Houston and visit with the leadership team there. And I got to tour the campus. And I'm telling you, I was blown away. It wasn't because it's a brand new, shiny building. When I entered the building and got to walk through it, and I'm not that deep of a guy either, I could feel something special about this place. And I got to see the patients, these very, very, very complex patients. I got to see their nurses, their therapists, their family members right there at their side working with them. And I'm telling you, it almost knocked me over. I went from, I don't think so, to I really want this job. And fortunately for me, Carl Josehart, who was the CEO at the time, he wanted me to have the job. So that's what got me in the role that I'm in today, or that's what started it. So part of the recruitment for me to come down there was, what I experienced there, getting to work with Carl, and then part of the recruitment. So at the time, we were in a little bit of a different place. So our chief nursing officer also held the title of chief operating officer. So she had a dual title, but she really didn't function as the COO. So the position they were recruiting me for was the director of hospital operations. And the way it was sold to me was, this is the number 2 person. You office right next to Carl, you share the same assistant. You are the guy that's in charge when Carl's not around and he's doing other stuff. And I said, well, that sounds good, I guess. You don't want to get too hung up in a title, but as they're talking to me, their goal is to hire potentially Carl's replacement when he decides to retire, or at least hire the person that maybe will be an option. And so my concern was, well, how do you go from director of hospital operations to CEO? That's a pretty big leap, title-wise. And So I was all in. I wasn't worried about that. And actually, from a title standpoint, I took a step backwards title-wise to take this job in Houston. But I was looking what at the time I thought was a bigger picture, hoping it would all kind of turn out the way it was described to me during the recruitment process. And so once I got to Houston, that is exactly how I approached my job as the number 2. I didn't care what my title was. I reported directly to Carl. So that's, if he told me to do something, that's what we were doing. I didn't check with anybody else. You know, some simple stuff, and this is going to sound bad when it comes out probably, but so forgive me. But, you know, some of the simple stuff, you know, like they asked me, you know, we need to get you a time and attendance sign-on, username and sign-on so you can approve time and attendance, everybody's hours for the week. So I'm pretty sure y'all didn't bring me down to Houston to do time and attendance. Okay, I'm not doing that. And so there's several of those things like that I'm not going to do it because I'm doing bigger things in my mind. I'm going to try to function at a much higher level. So so that was part of it for me. The other part for me was being incredibly visible. You'll probably hear me mention visible multiple more times, but I'm an incredibly visible leader. But in this new role, I made sure I was everywhere. If we had an event, we have events all the time at Tier. There's cameras all the time. There's this, that, there's galas, all kinds of stuff. I made sure I was front and center and present so people knew who I was and what I was doing. And so that was part of my strategy, and I think it paid off. So within the first year, I was going to ask you all this earlier. You know what happened in 2015? It was so different when we went to number 2 in the country in terms of top rehab hospitals. The answer is I showed up. That's not what did it, but I like to tell people that, and my resume will reflect that under my leadership. So. So then I had an accelerated rate of growth within the organization, which I was kind of alluding to. So I started as the director of hospital operations. A year later, AVP of operations. A year later, the chief operating officer. A year later, chief executive officer. So it was a lot happened in a short amount of time, 4 years. I kind of got in the cycle. Once a year, I get promoted, and so now I'm ready for there's probably nothing next. But it's been you know, none of this was. I don't know that it was necessarily all by design, but it wasn't by accident either. But part of this was Memorial Hermann, you know, coming through with what they kind of promised me, delivering on what they promised, and then me doing what they expected out of me and making sure I was in a position to take on this new role. So so this was definitely another unexpected turn for me. Because I thought I was probably 2 or 3 years away from Carl retiring. And that's when I get the opportunity. And it literally, we had one of our weekly 7 a.m. meeting, just the 2 of us. And I was concerned about something. He said, hey, before you get into that, I should tell you, I just submitted my letter of resignation. I said, what? Hold on. May not be ready for all this. And I was really focused because I'm a lifelong diehard Cubs fan. So I was really focused on the next day. I was leaving for Chicago to see the Cubs play. Now I've got all this, he's retiring, and what's going on, and where do I still fit in? Am I going to? What's the deal here? And so so this was definitely unexpected. The timing was much earlier than I thought. I want to talk about Carl just for a few minutes, because I'm going to tell you, I've had the opportunity to have several people, I'll talk about another one here in a few minutes, that have really had a significant influence in my life. I've known Carl, as I said, for about 4.5 years, I guess, to count the recruitment process. And I don't want to minimize what I learned from Carl from a leadership standpoint, because I learned plenty from him. I learned so much more about being a person from him than I have learned from him from a leadership standpoint. So when Carl first met me, I'll try to think if I can think of all the ways that Carl and I are different. There's nothing wrong with any of these things. So Carl is from the North. Carl is gay. Carl is Jewish. Carl is a Democrat. Carl has a long history in rehab. I'm none of those things. I mean, and I sound like this, okay? And so Carl looked past everything that made us different and focused on what we had in common. And let me tell you, what we have in common is so much greater than what we do not have in common. And so Carl has again played a big role in my life. So we talk about how wonderful a place Tier is and the national reputation that we have. And so as I'm moving into this new role, so that the tier name casts a pretty big shadow. On top of that, guess who the guy is for inpatient rehabilitation? It's Carl. He's the guy. So that's who I'm having to replace. So I get the shadow of tier, and I get to try to fill his shoes. So it's a pretty big role. As I was thinking about this, when it all happened, I thought, I should have timed this differently. I should have been the guy that replaced the guy that replaced Carl, because trying to replace literally a national legend is not easy. I'm very fortunate. This was his parting words to me. He still lives in Houston. His parting words to me, I'm as close as he needs me to be, and he's as far away as I need him to be. So he's there if I need him, and I really appreciate that. So within all this, I have to figure out how to kind of carve my own path. How do I navigate this? How do I try to get out of Carl's shadow, and how do I keep tier evolving and moving forward? So that's been my big challenge, probably the last, last 5 months. I think it's by and large, it's gone fairly well. It's a significant undertaking. Probably the biggest difference, or the thing that I underestimated the most, was my time. If anybody's thinking about getting into healthcare administration, what I'm about to tell you may scare you a little bit. So my typical hours are 7A-ish to 7P. So if you're going to these nursing clinical roles, you work the 7A to 7P shift. So that's why I jokingly tell people I work 7A to 7P shift. But prior to my promotion to CEO, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. was kind of my time. I could do stuff in my office, and then 5 to 7 again was my time again. But from 8 to 5, I'm in meetings and going nonstop and all that good stuff. When I got promoted into the CEO role, still 7A to 7P, but that time that was my time was no longer my time. And then there was additional extended hours in terms of events and having to represent the organization and things of that nature. And so I really underestimated the amount of time that my time management and how little control I was going to have over it. I was sharing with some of the group earlier, this is a small glimpse, and this is not all the time. So I want you guys to think, gosh, this is crazy. It's just kind of where we are. So I literally, 2 weeks ago, I got back from China. I was in Shanghai, China, visiting with a rehab hospital. They want to partner with TIER because of our name and help them evolve their healthcare and their rehab services. So I was in Shanghai. I'm leaving for Boston in a week and a half. 2 weeks after that, I'm going to Chicago, and somewhere there I'm supposed to go to Orlando. So the next 8 weeks, I am literally just all over the place. And somewhere in all this, I still have to find time to do my job and figure out how to continue to push us. So that the number one question I get, and in the video you saw Gabby Gibberts, the gentleman that's at her bedside, kind of a bald guy, had his back turned to us in the video, is Gabby's husband, Mark Kelly. So I don't know if you know Mark Kelly's name. Mark is an astronaut. And that's a pretty cool, what do you do? I'm an astronaut. It's a pretty cool line. So Mark was actually in space at one point during Gabby's recovery because he had a mission, and so he was up in space. And the big joke in the building, I was not there when she was there. I've had the opportunity to spend time with both of them. But the big joke at the time was, we can't get a cell signal in the building, yet Mark's up in space and he's talking to Gabby in her hospital room in Houston, but we can't get a cell signal. So so the question I get asked a bunch, and I ran into Mark and Gabby a couple months ago in Houston. So what are you going to do to get us to number one? How are we going to get TIER to be the number one rehab hospital in the country? I'm tired of answering that question. I'm running out of good answers. But for us, it's going to be continuing to evolve and focus on the things that we think are important. We already talked about clinical excellence, seeing the most complex patients. Our role from a research standpoint, we saw in the video, our research footprint is significant. We have about $30 million in active research funding happening right now. You saw the robotic devices, the REX, and all that good stuff. Our education academy, we're educating people from around the world. They come to Houston Destination Facility for other ongoing continuing education needs. And then our roles as an advocate. We feel like advocacy is a big deal and something that we need to lend the TIER name to and lend our support to help move the needle. Even though we have an ADA, there's still much work that needs to be done. So these are all the things that we're focused on, and that I'm focused on trying to help us push TIER into the right direction. One of the things again that I think you ask anybody that's worked with me that they would tell you without hesitation, I'm a very visible leader. I tell people that part of that's beginning because I'm not very smart. So I have to see things. I have to get out there and I have to, I'm not clinical. So when you're talking about some device or something, I need to see it. I need to understand what we're talking about and help me understand it. And so I've always been a very visible leader. One of the very, very pleasant surprises was the amount of time. So our patients are with us longer at TIER than they're with us probably twice as long as any other rehab hospital around the country. We've had patients, Gabby was with us for 6 months inpatient-wise. We've had patients since I've been there that have been with us for a year. So we get to know our patients. We get to know their families. And being a visible leader, I think it's awesome. You get to form that connection, that relationship, and you really do form a bond with these people. We were just talking about this young man from outside of Houston, Haley? Haley, yeah, I know his name. Haley so we know the same guy. She told me where she was from. I said, I know, so I was just at a fundraiser there. And she said DJ's name. And through his time at TIER, been able to form a relationship with him and his family, and he'll be coming back for another admission in the near future with us. But it's that kind of relationship that you get to form. And so I think being visible, being present is very important, not just with patients and families, but with staff. I constantly round. There's literally no one in the building when I see them, if I'm passing, that I will not speak to. I'm going to say good morning, good afternoon, hello to whoever I pass in the hallway, and spend time on the floors, on the nursing units, getting to know the staff and letting them know that I am engaged and want to work with them. So, I've been going for a long time here. So this little graph, so Susan Thomas, I can't take credit for this, by the way. Susan Thomas is our marketing manager, and she's who put this whole thing together for me. Because I would still be trying to put it together if it was left to me. So one of the things to talk about. So we talked about all these different turns, this journey I'm on, and an unexpected turn here, an unexpected. Now all of a sudden these things have happened. So kind of a now what? So I'm the CEO of this organization, and so what's next for me? So I'm in my current job. Make sure I'm performing well in my current job. Are there any gaps in my skills? Is there areas where I need to improve, things I need to do better, have more knowledge of? I can tell you from a research standpoint, they literally don't let me go in that building very often because everybody in that building is, you ever seen that, what's that show? Big Bang Theory? The really smart people? That's our research building, okay? So they don't even let me in there. So research is something, in terms of the funding and the grants and all that stuff, that's something that I need to know more about. I need to educate myself more on. So identifying gaps in your skills, and we all have gaps there. There are things that we can do better, that we can improve on. Future aspirations. We talked about earlier. I was director of admissions. That's where I thought I wanted to stop. Now some other stuff has happened. Now, do I want more? Would I like to do something different? At this point, I'm very, very happy where I am. I love being in the hospital. I've talked to some of the group that are in nursing school. I'll make this one big plug again for the whole room that's in any type of clinical degree. If you get the opportunity to come to Houston and work in the Texas Medical Center or train in the Texas Medical Center, you absolutely should not pass up that opportunity. There's no place like the Texas Medical Center. 55 healthcare organizations, all intertwined. It's the largest medical center in the world. 110,000 people work in the medical center every day. What's the population of Tyler? 110,000. There you go. So the city of Tyler works in the Texas Medical Center every day. It's that big a deal. And when you put that on your resume, I truly believe you can go anywhere in the country and work. So future aspirations. I love being in a hospital. People have asked me about, what's next for me. I'm like, I just got this job. Give me a few minutes to either fail or succeed or something. Let me figure this out. And so I don't know what's next for me. And I think if you get to a certain level, that's where you want to stay. I think that's great. But if you do have future aspirations, I think maybe at some point for me, I think I could potentially envision being more of a system level executive, not really a hospital level responsibility, but responsibility for a system. I don't know if any of you guys know Chris Gwinney that lives here in Tyler. He's the system executive for Trinity Mother Francis. I forget Chris's part all the time. Christus Trinity Mother Francis. Chris is in a system executive role. He has oversight for the Tyler campus, Longview, and Texarkana. So he's in a big, high-level role. And so maybe at some point, maybe something like that might interest me. But I really do enjoy being in the hospital every day. So I always, look for opportunities for growth. Kind of goes back to me taking that call from the recruiter yesterday. Want to know what opportunities are out there. You never know when you might need a recruiter to help you out with something. Healthcare is constantly changing, and so you got to be able to change with it. And then, a self-evaluation. Where are you? What are you doing? Are you doing what you think you should be doing? Again, what's next? So, here's just some of my just thoughts as it relates to career growth. One, seize all opportunities. Even if you think you're not going to like it, I can tell you there was a time when I was with Chris's trainee Mother Francis that I moved, and I blame Chris for this. Chris was, before his current role, he had left the hospital side, operation side, and moved over to the clinic side, Trinity Clinic Practice Management. And he asked me to come over with him and help him, and he was building his team. And I said, sure, I think this would be, a great opportunity for me to learn some new skills, learn some knowledge about something I know nothing about. And they talk about everything's kind of moving in that outpatient direction. So I did it. Bad decision. I mean, you're looking at the practice management side of it. And so that was painful for me, but it was still a good experience because I did learn some things and I also learned what I didn't like. And so that was key because, again, I'm going to be doing this for a while, and so I need to enjoy what I'm doing. So always take advantage of any and all opportunities. Never get hung up on pay. I have never in my career questioned, are you going to pay me more for this? Well, how much are you going to pay me? All those things. And this was some advice that was given to me early on in my career. And I can tell you, it has paid off for me not getting hung up on pay. So I encourage everyone, all of you, if you ever get an opportunity when you're in your careers and what's next, don't get hung up on pay. Take the opportunity, because the opportunity will pay for itself more than whatever pay raise you're going to get in the long run. I think you do have to be willing to move around a little bit. Unfortunately, the days of individuals staying with one organization their whole career, they're few and far between anymore. Our director of pharmacy, I was talking with somebody about her earlier, and she's been at TIER for 45 years. There's not too many of her out there, okay? So I think you do have to move a little bit because it will help you, I think, grow maybe a little bit quicker. There's that saying out there, you're kind of cursed in your own land sometimes. And so where I was kind of hung up. I was kind of at a stopping point based on where I was and who was in between me and where I wanted to go and what opportunities existed. And so for me, making that move turned out to be just a great decision. And I think you need to be open to that as well, especially when you're young and you can move around. My move was probably delayed 5 or 6 years. Tyler in the back room knows my son. So my son, I know he's Tyler's age, so I think he's probably everybody else's age roughly. He, growing up here playing basketball, and so we were at a point where we really couldn't move, and so I had to put my next step in my career, that searching, on hold temporarily till we got him through high school, and then before I could start looking. And so take advantage of it when you can, when you're young, to look at different organizations. Also look at very reputable organizations. Think about the places where you're going, the place where you're potentially going to work. You want to put some cool places on your resume. You want to put some things that are a big deal. I keep going back to this. If you work in the Texas Medical Center, you can put that on your resume. That's a big deal. Never burn bridges, because again, you never know how life's going to go and when there's going to be another unexpected turn. So you always want to leave on good terms. I mentioned Chris Glennie's name multiple times already this morning. I reach out to Chris from time to time. We meet a couple times a year. Chris is somebody I could call in a heartbeat and could get his advice on whatever. So I left on very good terms. I left Mother Francis, and I'm very grateful for those relationships that I still have. So dress for the job you want, not the job you have. That's kind of been something I've always really believed in. I think part of how you look is how serious people are going to take you, especially if you're going into the business world. And if you're going into nursing, don't show up with scrub that look like they've been wadded up on the floor. Come neat and prepared and look right. It's something I think it's always served me well, because as I started my journey, just how I looked, I think to a certain extent, how I dressed, told people I wanted to do something more. I wanted bigger, better things. So I just offer that. And I still just give a quick plug. I'm not supposed to do this, I'll do it anyway, so don't anybody yell at me. I'm still very loyal to Tyler, so I'm a very loyal guy. And so I came in town yesterday evening to make sure I had some stuff to add to my wardrobe to wear to work, to make sure I looked the part. Harley Hooper takes great care of me, so that's why I buy all my clothes to this day. You know, there's great places in Houston. Don't let your boss outwork you, okay? This is a big deal. When I first got to TIER, I knew nothing about rehab. I knew about healthcare, and the basics of healthcare are the basics. But there's not, but there are differences between the acute care setting and rehab. And you know, that first week or two that I'm there, I mean, I have no clue I don't know what I'm doing. I know I've got a desk, a phone, you know, got a little thing on with my name on the desk, and kind of a big deal, right? I had no clue what I was doing, and so I just sat at my desk and looked like I was working on stuff as I was slowly figuring it out. But I did not leave. I made sure Carl left before I left. I was the last one there every night. And that was, you know, part of laying that foundation of my commitment to what we were doing. You know, obviously I picked up stuff pretty quick on what I should be doing and stuff that kept me busy. I promise you, I don't have to look for things to do anymore. I've got plenty to do and not enough time in the day. But never let your boss outwork you. From a networking standpoint, so one, this is a great deal, and I was very appreciative. Out in the lobby, 3 or 4 or 5 different students came up and introduced themselves and started asking me questions and starting some conversation, doing some networking. And I think networking is incredibly important. I'm a member, as mentioned, I'm a member of the American College of Healthcare Executives. So that's a professional organization for healthcare leaders. There's probably 30 to 40,000 leaders around the world that are members of ACHE. And it's a great, great networking organization, continuing education organization. They kind of meet all your needs as an executive in healthcare. There are different chapters across the country. I think there's 81 chapters across the United States. I think that's right. I'm now part of the Southeast Texas chapter, which is pretty much Houston. When I lived here in Tyler, I was part of the East Texas chapter. I was the president of the chapter, by the way. So I think all those things are important, okay? Community involvement. So Mayor Turner, 4th largest city in the country, Mayor Turner reaches out to me in my new role, CEO of TIER, a hospital that deals with traumatic, catastrophic injuries, sometimes because of gun violence, asked me to sit on his commission against gun violence. There's 33 people in Houston that were asked to sit on this commission. Part of it was my role at TIER. The other part was they knew I was from Tyler. They knew I was conservative. They were fairly certain I might, be a gun owner. And so they wanted a very diverse group commission. And so I absolutely said yes. Again, this is one of those deals. Somebody like this, somebody like a Mayor Turner asks you to serve. I think you jump at that opportunity to represent your organization and to be visible. And so it's been a great experience thus far working on this group. I think personal relationships are very important from a networking standpoint, and then various leadership programs. So I went through Center for Houston's Future Leadership Program. I just finished the American Leadership Forum, which is a year-long program in Houston. And these are both great programs that I went through, and so continuing to evolve, trying to get better. American Leadership Forum is really more about finding your inner person, I guess, and breaking down internal barriers that maybe you have. And Carl had gone through it, and so he was telling me he was going to nominate me, and you got to get nominated, you got to get voted on, and all this other craziness. And your organization typically picks up the bulk of the cost, but they want you to pay a percentage of it, so you're invested as well. And as I was thinking about this deal, I thought, I don't think this is my thing. This just seems, I don't think it's me. But Carl loved it, and I said, okay, I'm going to go do it. And Rhonda Abbott, who's our number 2 at TIER now, I told her, I said, look, I'm going to see how this goes. And if I think it's crazy, you don't have to do it, okay, when it's your turn. And she said, okay, fair enough. So our first weekend retreat, we had a 2-day retreat. There's 2 2-day retreats throughout the year. We go to Colorado for a week in the middle of nowhere, off the grid. Cell phones don't work, nothing happens. And it's really not a team building deal. There's a little bit of that, but it's very minor. It's really getting more about you. And that first weekend, we have to do this deal called the 7-minute story. That's all you get, 7 minutes. They don't want to know about your job. They know about your job and all that. That's how you got to be a part of this program. They want to know about who you are, where you're from, who's influenced you, what do you stand for, all these things. What's your life story in 7 minutes? And it's not easy to do. And they mean 7 minutes. My first run through practicing, I like to practice a little bit. It was 12 minutes. And so I called our facilitator and I said, hey, so on this 7-minute deal, we're talking like we get some wiggle room here? She said, no, we get 7 minutes. She goes, I'll give you a beeper and get shut down. And so I had to get it all into 7 minutes. This was our very first day together. We all get in a circle and we tell our 7-minute stories to the group. There's 25 of us. I don't know any of these people, any better than I know most of you, right? And all of a sudden, I start thinking about what I'm telling these people about me. Some of my best friends to this day don't know some of these things about me, And it turned into a very, very, it was a very emotional journey. I've told people that I don't think I've cried that much over the course of this ALF experience since I was a baby. I mean, it was an unbelievable journey. And so I just mentioned that just to say leadership programs are very important for you to continue to evolve and not just as a leader, but as a person in general. I believe I'm a better leader today because of that ALF experience and what it helped me kind of see about myself and maybe things I didn't like or things I should do differently. So I would encourage you guys to, any chance you get, to take advantage of that. So So I talked about networking. Another big deal is having a mentor. And I wrote this down so I don't, because she texted me. So another big influence in my life was a lady named Joyce Hester. Joyce is absolutely one of the most incredible people I've ever had the experience of knowing. And I was very fortunate early in my career. Joyce saw something in me. And I would almost guarantee that if it was not for Joyce Hester, I would not be in this role that I'm in today. She saw something in me. She kind of took me under her wing, and she helped me navigate what I wanted out of life, who I wanted to be, what kind of leader, all those things. She was an incredible mentor. She still is a great mentor. She retired in the last year or two from Tree Mother Francis. She was the Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for the health system. And she, in Memorial Hermann, it's funny. So we'll go into meetings and somebody may say something and they'll go like, hey, we hope we didn't offend you with that. I said, I grew up in healthcare at Mother Francis. I said, there's no telling what you were going to hear in some of those meetings. And Joyce was one of those people, she'd shoot straight with you. And so I told you about my goal of my aspiration of being the director of admissions, right? So prior to me getting promoted to director, that's probably a year prior to that is when Joyce kind of took me under her wing and started working, not directly with her, but we just started our kind of that informal mentoring relationship. And when I got promoted into the, and because there's probably some whining on my part over the previous year about who was in charge of the department at the time and how I would do things differently, and I'm so much smarter and better and all those things, right? And I had it all figured out. And so when I got promoted, there was a whole reorg shift, and so the director of admissions with this reorg started reporting to Joyce. So I went from friends, mentor, to she was who I reported to. And so she called me into her office and went over the rules of life with me. The rules according to Joyce. I actually carry them with me in my briefcase at all times. There's like 33 of them. And but in addition to that, you guys are all too young, but so this picture at the very top is the old Rolodex, these little cards where you could write phone numbers and you put in a little Rolodex file, and you don't have no clue what I'm talking about, right? So it's before the cell phone, you could save them in your phones. And so she pulled out her Rolodex to keep all her important phone numbers on her desk, and she grabbed the phone book, and she wrote down U-Haul. Everybody knows what U-Haul is, right? U-Haul, 320 Beckham, that's the phone number. She said, I'll put this in my Rolodex. I said, I don't understand the significance of that. She said, you've been asking for this job for the past year, nonstop. Now you've got it. The first time you complain about it, you can pack your stuff up, because I'm going to call U-Haul, and you can get out. And that's pretty much how that conversation went. And so when I got promoted into administration and I no longer reported to Joyce, she actually gave me that Rolodex card. And so it's framed and it actually sits on a bookshelf in my office today. So like I said, I learned a ton from her. I think you can have mentors inside and outside of whatever industry you're working in, because I think it's great to be open to other industries and other ways of doing things. I think it's very important. I think the mentoring deal is it's a two-way street. You know, I would tell Carl all the time how much I really have learned from him and how much he's contributed to my success, and he would tell me without hesitation how much he has learned from me. And that always kind of blew me away because I'm thinking, this is the guy. How's he learning anything from me? And so it's very much a two-way street. You need a mentor, but just know you have something to offer as well in that relationship. So I sent Joyce a picture of this slide, and I said, does this look familiar, the U-Haul number? And so at the bottom, it's got career reductions, corporate understanding, problem solving, career planning, work methods, overcoming hurdles, all these things in terms of how a mentor can help. Joyce says, she said to me, I said, you see this thing? And she said, sounds like a lot of corporate speak to me. She said, what you need to tell these students is the role of the mentor is to tell you to get over yourself. And so Joyce was always tasked with keeping me humble, telling me to get over myself. It's bigger than you. And there's some other things she used to tell me, but I won't share those with you. But clearly she's had an incredible impact on me. And like I said, there's no doubt in my mind I would not be where I am today without her taking an interest in me and being such an influential person in my life. So some of the things that I look at in terms of being a great leader, I think the first one's probably incredibly key. As leaders, we have to recognize that we do not have all the answers. We do not have to be the smartest guy in the room. I'm a good example of that. Why are you shaking your head? Yes. No, I'm just kidding. So, they're on my team, there are experts in every discipline, every part of what we do within the hospital. I don't have to be the expert. That's why we have them. I have to be able to organize us, get us together, get us pointed in the right direction, have a strategic plan, all those things. But I don't have to have all the answers. It's okay to say, I don't know. Let me check with Rhonda Abbott, who's our executive over therapy services. She will know the answer to this. Goes right into the second bullet point, rely on others' expertise. That's what they're there for. Collaboration, it's a key in life, and no matter what industry you're in, you're going to have to work with others. You cannot get things done on your own for the most part. You're going to have to work with others. So you've got to be able to collaborate. You've got to build relationships. You've got to trust your colleagues. In my world, one of the biggest disconnects, I think, in the health industry in general, typically is between the physicians and the evil hospital administrators, right? There's that divide there. And so we work very hard on our campus to make sure there's not that divide, that we're very engaged. In the picture right behind me, so that's me in the front wearing glasses. That's what I wanted to see that day. Dr. Francisco, our Chief Medical Officer, is right behind me there. And so he's a very big part of what we do. And I don't make too many decisions, if any, without at least consulting with him to make sure he knows what I'm thinking, that I've got his support, his buy-in, and then we have that same level of communication with all the physicians that we work with. I think you need to, think about how you view yourself, your perception. Kind of goes back to what Joyce said, kind of get over yourself. It's not about you. You do want to be seen as someone that people have confidence in. You need to pay attention to what you do, especially when you're in a CEO role. This has been another kind of aha moment for me. You're kind of in the spotlight a little bit. I mean, you can't, people are watching your kind of every move to a certain extent. I was telling the group earlier, I mentioned I went to China, but I was telling the group earlier, I had the day before I was supposed to leave for China, a group of physicians from China came to TIER. They wanted to tour and meet us. And I said, this is crazy. I'm leaving for China tomorrow. And they all said at the same time, we know. And I said, how do you know? What does that mean? And so they've got this app called WeChat. It's a social media app. They do everything on it. Like pay bill, they do everything with WeChat. And they all pull up their phones, and there I am on WeChat that I'm coming to Shanghai to visit a hospital. And it blew me away. And so you're just always in the spotlight. Me being here, one of the ladies I work with, her nephew goes to school here, plays on the baseball team. You're not in the room, are you? Colston? There you are. All right. So I'm meeting with Colston's aunt, Sandra Lloyd. She's one of our key leaders on our team. And I'll tell you right now,
you will never find somebody more passionate about the work that we do than his Aunt Sandra. She's a great lady. I'm very fortunate to get to work with her. So I'm meeting with Sandra on Tuesday. She said, so I hear you're going to Tyler to speak at the university. I said, how do you know that? And she said, I think you called her maybe over the weekend, and got my picture somewhere on campus or something. He called, said, you know this Jerry, I don't know, ask something, because yeah, we know him. So again, it's one of those judges. So you're kind of in the spotlight even when you don't realize you're in the spotlight. So you need to pay attention to that. I think you have to be genuine. Don't try to be somebody you're not, because people pick up on that pretty quick. Be who you are, and at the end of the day, if that's not good enough, I'm gonna have a disclaimer to come with this in just a few minutes. If that's not good enough, and then that's just maybe it's just not a right fit. But be yourself. What it means to be a CEO, again, I think you have to have a vision. You have to stand for integrity. These are all key things for me. Again, in healthcare, it's like this in every industry, but healthcare is a little bit different because we don't close, right? Hospitals do not close. We're open 24/7. So I've got responsibility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a hospital, for all the employees that work there and every patient in that building. And there's a lot that goes with that. When you think about it in those terms, it's like, oh, it seems like a lot of pressure there. I don't know, how many of y'all know what Joint Commission is? So it's an unannounced survey for hospitals, 3-year accreditation. So we're in that window of survey. They showed up yesterday for our 3-day survey at TIER. And so I was there for the opening session, went through the middle of the day, into the early afternoon, then I left to come here. As soon as we're done here later today, I'm going back to Houston. Had to change my plans because I was supposed to be playing golf in Austin on Friday. That's not happening. But I got to go back for the final day of the survey and the exit session with the Joint Commission. So again, 24/7. Just out of nowhere, this came up. I was very fortunate that I could still make this work because I wanted to be here. But it's those kind of things that you just never know when you're going to get a call and when you're going to have to do something different. I talked about being genuine, being yourself, but also personal perception in the community is very important, especially when you're in a leadership role. You do not want to do things that will reflect negatively upon you or your organization in your personal life, if that makes sense. We all have choices to make, and so you just have to, again, when you get into a leadership role, you're held to a little bit higher standard. And definitely when you move into a CEO role, you're definitely held to higher standards. So be yourself, but don't do anything that's going to embarrass you or your organization. I talked about community involvement earlier. I think that's very important. Again, visibility for me is from a leadership standpoint, that's where it all starts. I couldn't sit in my office all day long, and that would just drive me crazy. So I have to get out and about. And, when I think I'm having a tough day, or if I've looked at the computer for too long, that's when I'll go walk the floors, or I'll go to our main gym and visit with some of the patients. And we're very fortunate. We don't know what a tough day is when you see what some of these patients are going through. And so it puts everything in a whole new perspective. And so being visible is just incredibly important. Work-life balance is a big topic these days, and I'm not sure I quite have my arms around it. You've heard my schedule, so I'm not sure I'm the best example of what work-life balance looks like. I think as you progress in your career and you want to take on leadership opportunities, I think there's going to be more work than life in that balance. I'm not sure how you kind of make them equal out or even out a little bit. I do my best not to go up to the hospital on the weekends because I'm there so much during the week, so I try to steer through it on Saturday and Sunday. And so these pictures real quick. So that's members of our wheelchair basketball team right there. The Rockets honored us at halftime of one of their games, and so that's what that is from, the picture outside the Toyota Center. The bottom picture is we in our research department. I mentioned all the great work we're doing from a research standpoint. These are 3 of our research. Forgot the name of the award. Anyway, these 3 individuals won the award. And there's Dr. Francisco on the far right. And then the gentleman standing next to me, Dr. Mark Shearer, heads up all of our research efforts. Mark's another one of these guys. I should have mentioned his name earlier. Big deal. This guy can go anywhere in the country and head up research efforts for whoever he wants to. He chooses to be in Houston. He chooses to be a part of the TIER team. That's the kind of people we get to work with. And then the picture right above. So there I am. Anybody have any idea what's all over that table? Huh? Yes. You won the prize. We'll figure out what it is, but there's a prize. We'll come up with something. That is Chick-fil-A for days. So this was a little over a year ago, a year and 2 weeks ago. Hurricane Harvey. Anybody remember Hurricane Harvey? Well, if you live in Houston, you really remember it. And so again, it goes back to this 24/7 responsibility. You know, you can plan for a hurricane. So you got time to make sure you got plenty of food, linen, all that kind of stuff. So when it hit and the amount of rain that it dumped on Houston, specifically the medical center, the whole medical center was underwater. Every building looked like an island, just surrounded by water. So our hospital, we're very, have kind of a unique build or setup. So around our hospital, we have a 5-foot tall flood wall. Now it's the same color brick as the building. I mean, it looks like it's part of the architecture, but it's a 5-foot flood wall. And it goes 4 feet into the ground that surrounds the building. And then we have 12 floodgates, 4 big gates. They're probably the size of this table right here that slide to open and close. And then the other 8 they're wider doors, but they swing like a regular door through, you know, a foot wide, foot thick. And so we shut those floodgates, and then they have this kind of a bladder, like a bicycle tire, that we can put air to, and we inflate and we seal them. We shut the gates and we seal them, and we make them watertight. This is really the first time these gates have been used like that. When I first moved to Houston, they were showing me that this is our flood wall, these are the floodgates, and I thought, maybe that's just like a nickname for them or something. Surely that's not what they do. Well, that's what they do. But they've never been tested like this. And so I'm thinking to myself, there's no way in the world this is going to work. You know, surely this can't work. So we shut the gates, we seal them, and we were locked in for 6 days straight. No one went home because there's no way in or out once we shut those gates and seal them. So we were all there for 6 days straight. And during the peak of the flooding, we had about 3 feet of water pushing up on those floodgates. And those floodgates are from like me to this table in terms of the hospital. At no time did we ever go on loose power. We never had to use backup generators. We never ran low on food, linen, medication. Staffing was a little bit of a challenge for us because the storm was moving and we couldn't decide when to, we didn't want to bring staff in too early because they were going to have to stay for several days. And the storm shifted on us. And so we got caught a little bit, but we were able to get staff in, and what they went through to get to the hospital was nothing short of phenomenal. Sister Chi, who's one of our nurses on the 5th floor, she's a sister, and so she was in her full uniform, and her car broke down, flooded about 4 miles from the hospital. She walked for 4 miles with water up to her waist to get to Tier because she knew we needed her, and she wasn't the only one that did that. One of the coolest videos I saw during Hurricane Harvey. So for all you nursing students, this is what it's about. I get a little choked up talking about this. It was really a pretty emotional experience for all of us. And you really see the true spirit, human spirit come out in situations like this. There was a video out there, and there's 2 nurses from Big Herman, our level 1 trauma center, where our flight program is based out of. They're literally in this raft, floating, paddling, and on a mission. And a camera crew catches them and gets them on video and says, "Where are you guys going?" And they, without hesitation, they looked at the camera and said, "We're nurses. We're going to work." That kind of summed up everybody during this time. And so we were very fortunate. Once water started to go down a little bit, they were able to, canoes and all this stuff. So Chick-fil-A went out of their way to help get us food and get it over our flood wall to help us. You can only eat cafeteria for so many days in a row. They were very excited to see Chick-fil-A show up. And so that's all Chick-fil-A, and we're making sure everybody's getting food and all that good stuff. So, all right, that's it. I'm done. I hope you found that somewhat beneficial. I think we have a few minutes if there's any questions. Do we have a few minutes for questions? Did I go too long? Was that my fault? Any questions? I'm sorry, I went too long. Happy to stick around and field any questions, answer anything. If not, I really appreciate y'all's time and attention. It was a great honor to be here. And if I can ever be of any help to any of you guys, I mean this seriously, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you in your journey on your career, and love to see some of y'all in Houston at some point. No. Nobody can sleep like in one question. There we go.
So we talked about the importance of having a mentor. So how would what would be some strategies for identifying a good mentor and approaching them about
Yeah, I think one, it's people that you're interacting with. So if you, I would say this: if you don't haven't seen or encountered somebody you think would be a good mentor, I would reach out to an instructor or somebody like that to get their feedback or input, say, hey, who do you know that would be a good mentor? But if you have encountered somebody that you think, hey, I like the way this person does things, I think they could help me, I think I could benefit from that, just approach them and just tell them that. Say, hey, here's where I am in my career, this is what I want to do. I like the way you're doing things, and I would be a great honor if you would spend some time with me and help me, mentor me, and guide me on this journey. So just, yeah, don't be afraid to just ask. Yeah. I've had several people, for whatever reason, recently that approached me, and I think I've got, I won't say too many people I'm mentoring, but I'm here to help them because, you know, somebody invested in me a long time ago, and so however I can help somebody, I want to be able to do the same for them. So, all right. All right, that was the one question. So thank y'all. I know it's getting close to lunchtime. Appreciate it.